now who are here slightly later. We will continue with the conversation. Those who are on the outside, let me request that you come in so that we can start together. You are all welcome to the second day of the East Africa Regional Horticulture Workshop 2022. It is a continuation from yesterday. Yesterday we had a wonderful time. As you know, today we have a lot to cover. If you look at your program, it's quite a lot. And I want us to be able to manage our time very well. So you're welcome, all who are here, on the outside, please come in. We also want to welcome our virtual participants that we can enjoy and learn together and have this conversation. Thank you very, very much for leading us in that session. And as we said earlier on, the day today is a very short day. It has got a lot of things that need to be covered. And so we will try to be creative. We will try to be fast. We will try to be energized in doing what we are going to be doing. As I mentioned earlier, we are beginning off with the topic on emerging trends in national, regional, and global horticulture, opportunities for growth and expansion. And this is going to be a plenary panel discussion. And it's going to be, you're going to fly into it immediately. And so I'm going to be calling the panelists to actually join us here immediately, led by Mr. Clement Tulezi. Let's put our hands together as welcome Clement to take his seat. He's going to be the moderator, and I'm going to be doing a short, very interesting introduction of this panel. Let's clap for Brother Clement as he comes. Please have your seat, sir. On that panel is also going to be Mr. Okisegere Ojepat, the CEO Fresh Produce Consortium. Let's clap for our brother as he takes the seat. Thank you very much. Make yourselves comfortable. And then there is Mr. Samuel Balagad, Vice Chairperson, HortiFresh Apex Body for Fruits and Vegetables from Uganda. Let's clap for Samuel as he takes his seat. And then finally, we have got Mr. Wale Getane, Product Manager, Fruits and Vegetables, Flying Swans, Ethiopia. You can see him coming. Let's appreciate him. This is a very powerful panel. I thought that it would be good to introduce them and say who they are and give their credentials and talk about the things that they have done in the industry and on their journey. But I thought that probably is going to waste a lot of your time. What I'm going to do is just ask them to tell us something that they think you cannot find on Google. Something that you'll not find on Google. Because I know that you'll find all that information that you want on them on Google. And probably already Googled that information. So I'd like us just to hear from them something that they think cannot be found on Google. And we'll begin with our brother Clement Tulezi, the chairman of the National Horticulture Task Force. The mics are live.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I was wondering what you cannot find on Google. I have so much on Google, so what you may not find on Google is that where I work currently is something very different from what I ever thought I would ever be in life. What you'll find on Google is that I have the passion on what I do every day in horticulture, but you may not really understand that was very far from my calling in life. But I'm so happy that I have had an opportunity of being part of this sector in Kenya. And we are making huge strides within the sector with a little contribution that I make every day. My calling is completely different from this, my first calling, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a hand of appreciation. What he's probably saying is that he's an He's a media man now in the horticulture space. That is his calling that he's talking about. Thank you very, very much. Let's move on and hear from Ojepat. And Ojepat, what is that thing that we cannot find on Google about you? Probably around the passion.
Okay, I'm not very sure. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I tell this guy when we were learning science, he was busy learning English and telling stories. And so we keep telling him he's a man who does not know anything, but he reports everything. So perhaps that's the difference between us. In terms of passion, you can't really quantify the passion I have for this industry, but at least I'm a product of, I'm a school dropout. Perhaps that's what I need to say. I dropped out of school enough times, and that what you'll not find in Google is that I spend more time in the village than in school. But that did not stop me from pursuing what I have. And I keep telling this guy, poverty stings. Perhaps that's what you'll not get it. And for that reason, having dropped out of school enough times, I decided I will do everything humanly possible to run away from poverty.
Thank you very much. Let's give a hand of appreciation. He's telling us that actually a man who spends a lot of time on the farm. So the dropout story is an important one, but really is that he spends a lot of his time on the farm. Thank you very much. We will move on to Mr. Wale Getali.
Thank you. I don't know which word is actually included in the Google or not, so maybe I will explain in what I'm doing or what I was doing. I was leading an avocado project in the country. Actually, that was lead just to be able to export our commodity to the Europe. So just that was actually my previous good experience in the sector, almost for the last 6 years. Now I'm working on the Flying Swan consortium. It's a group of company actually they form it from the Netherlands. Is one of it the port of Rotterdam in Boskalis. And the aim is to develop agro-logistic corridor in Ethiopia, Kenya, Angola, and South Africa. And I'm working now fruit-end project manager in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's appreciate Wale. Let's give him a hand of appreciation. And finally, Mr. Clement Ulesi, the chairman of the National Horticultural Task Force. Sorry. Actually, Samuel.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I must first say that I enjoyed the first session yesterday. It was so informative, and I learned quite a lot, which will be very useful when I go back home. What you may not find about me on Google is that I started as a scientist. I specialize in standards. I worked a lot on promotion of the food industry and competitiveness standards. For a long time in Uganda, I worked with several projects. WHO, UNIDO, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, a number of. So by then I was seen as a standards expert and food safety. But everything zeroed on compliance. Everything was chemicals. Those meetings I used to attend, MRLs. I'm sure maybe I would have met some of you in Geneva or wherever, Rome, where we used to sit in the US and whatever. And finally, I decided to go business with a focus on horticulture, that is fruits and vegetables and value addition, where I still feel the challenges, and I work with the different stakeholders to make sure that we tackle these challenges. On my side, I know when they talk about pesticides, MRLs, and I know exactly what it means, and I enjoy it when I'm trying to share it with my other colleagues in the business, and that brought me to be the vice chair of the apex body of HortiFresh. And I think I'm working very well on all fronts. There is one person in this room, or two actually. I'm happy to be with them here. That is Anja. Anja will relate quite a lot in this area of horticulture, in particular on the side of inputs, and we are yet to do what we have promised to do for the country to ensure that we streamline. Just this morning, she was telling me that she's trying to get a certain product through what has taken years, which will be very useful for us. Instead of carrying so many sackers of whatever, of potatoes, but now you have just seeds. Potato is a very good product. It's one of our products in Uganda of commercial value. And another person in this room is Dr. Carol Nanchinga. We work very closely. She has guided us on issues of compliance and legislation because she's part of the NPPO, and we are working quite closely. So thank you very much.
All right. So now you know a few things that you otherwise have not known, because Google will tell you everything, but this is our opportunity to hear a few things. And so this is a very powerful panel, as you can tell, and I want to hand over immediately to our moderator, Clement Tulesi, to pick up from there. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate the opportunity just to sit before you and lead this panel. I believe at the end of the day, we should be able to underscore some solutions around what we see horticulture within the region, how it is, and moving forward, what are the trends and what we expect in the near future. A few weeks ago in Kenya, I think it's precisely three weeks ago, we had the release of the Kenya National Survey report, Economic Survey report. This is usually a summary of where the economy is. And within Kenya, this report always underscores some of the areas or sectors that have contributed to the economy in a greater way. And we see in Kenya, it was recorded that in 2021, the growth was actually at 7.3. For me, I was seated just listening to that report, and I have had an opportunity of reading it, and it doesn't really translate into the pocket. I was wondering, where did the 7.3 come from? But I've gone ahead to quantify some of the key sectors, their under contribution. What I was happy about this report is that it was very explicit, that we've had so many sectors, but on the export, and I'm very specific, on the export, horticulture is number one. In terms of the value of horticulture in Kenya in 2021, it was close to $900 million US. In Kenya, those who are Kenyans, that translates close to probably 150, about 150 or 160, actually specific 153 billion Kenya shillings. And for a long time, we have always remained, for many, many years, until 3 years ago, we were always behind tea. Tea was always number one export from Kenya. In terms of a sector in Kenya, horticulture is number 3 after remittance and tourism. We started off a very small sector back in the 1990s. This is both for cut flowers, ornamentals, vegetables and fruits, very small sectors, but we have seen that those sectors have grown immensely. Today, if there is any sector that is the fastest in Kenya, is horticulture. Our growth is always more than 10%. Sometimes, and in 2018, I'll give an example, we actually hit a 38%. It's not hard of in Kenya today, any sector having such kind of growth. But it's a sector that is growing, but on the other hand, we have so many challenges. If you sit with me and my brother OJ, we work very closely. We will tell you 1,000,001 challenges that we have. Today, we don't just want to focus on the challenges. We want to focus on then what are the solutions for us to get to stay on those double digits and even do better. This story that I'm telling can be replicated in the neighboring countries within the region. We know that Ethiopia is a giant when it comes to horticulture. It's one of our major competitors, in quotes. We work very closely with some of the institutions there. The same we can talk about Uganda. I'm working very closely with the Uganda Flower Association. For those who don't know, I wear another hat. I'm the CEO of Kenya Flower Council, and therefore work very closely. In Tanzania, we work with TAHA on horticulture. So we work very closely with some of those institutions, and I know the trends that are there. So this is a sector that has a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential. But can we really maximize on this potential today to keep growing every day? We have an inherent advantage over many other sectors because close to 80% of the producers are actually smallholders. It's both an opportunity as well as a challenge. The second opportunity we have is that we move our product very, very fast because it's fresh produce. It's both an advantage, but also there are many challenges that come with that. We deal with a bulk of the sector, we deal with food crops. So how do we navigate that? My brother Samuel was talking about MRLs and compliance and all that. It becomes a big, big challenge. We see a lot of innovation within the sector. What can we do to keep growing this sector every day? With the challenges that are there and the trends that we are seeing, can we remain competitive within the region and also at the global market? When everything is held constant, I spend a lot of time in the global market internationally. I go to Europe as often as I can. And I interact with buyers at all levels. Intermediary buyers, even at the level of retailers, I interact with them one-on-one. And I understand the competition that is there. The competition is not amongst ourselves within the region. The competition is at a different level. The Perus of this world, the Mexicos of this world, the Colombias, the Ecuadors, the Moroccos of this world, the Senegal, you can name them. That is where the competition is. All the things that we are doing, we are not alone. Everyone else is looking to outsmart us. Can we, in this forum, come up with strategies that will put us at that level where we remain completely competitive when we look at the products that we export? I will not talk about the domestic consumption. In Kenya, 95% of what we produce, we consume it here. But we want to have a better footprint in the export market. What are we actually going to do as we do that? I'm happy to moderate this session, and I believe that I have experts seated here who will answer quite a number of questions as we interact, but it will just be a discussion. We will be looking at some of these trends and just see how we are able to make sense of where things are and where we want to see ourselves as a region in a couple of years to come. So, Samuel, when we look at Uganda, across all the products that we produce, horticulture, we know we have a number of flower farms. We have production of fruits and veg. Where are we now? What are we actually looking at as the emerging things that you see? That is, the terrain is changing. What is it that is changing? If you compare the horticultural sector 10 years ago and where we are, what has actually changed for you within your environment?
Thank you very much, moderator. First and foremost, I must admit that the sector in Uganda is still growing, but the potential is very, very high. We still have a lot of room to improve in terms of volumes. As we grow, we have been focusing mainly on the international markets, that is the EU. And it is in the EU that we have faced a lot of challenges of late, and that is due to compliance. We have serious issues with the pests, especially the key quarantine pests in both flowers and fruits and vegetables. For example, the FCM and the others. I don't want to go into details. Then, as we moved on, another challenge came in. That is the challenge of MRLs. There are some pesticides that have been banned. There are some pesticides that have not been banned but should be properly used in order to pass the tests as these products enter the EU markets at the different entry points. So the challenge has been to do with training, a lot of training, and that has been mentioned yesterday, skilling of our people on how to use pesticides, getting these proper pesticides on the market, accessibility to put the right pesticides, and so many other issues that were mentioned yesterday. But in my thinking, we should not always focus on the challenges. We should also focus on the opportunities and how we can solve the challenges. Because many times our head of state says that he's tired of being told of challenges and budgets. Because whenever people go to see him, they first say that we have this big challenge and we need this big budget. But then they don't go with the actual solution which they can do themselves. So I think that the first opportunity we have as we resolve these challenges is to look at our own local market. I see a lot of growing interest in eating the vegetables and buying the flowers for the different functions at home, both sad and when people die, of course it's not good, but flowers are bought. But also people in homes have started buying flowers, for example. So there is a day which is very popular. I don't know where it is here. They call it, is it Valentine's Day? I see so many roses being sold, and sometimes I also try to buy one. And if I don't put it on the dashboard to dry and I keep it well, it gets home good. But we need to focus on also our own local markets, interest people to eat these vegetables. There is a gentleman in this room who told me he's doing very well with the vegetables being sold. He grows them and sells them in the local market. He's one of us, yeah, please. So there's an opportunity. That's the first one. We look at that opportunity as we try to ensure that compliance with these other bigger markets. Then the regional market. The regional market has offered a lot of good market for our people, some of the exporters. Today, the biggest exporter in Uganda actually exports the local market in terms of volumes. He does about 100, this is a very small figure, he does about 100, 120 metric tons per week, and they go to Sudan and South Sudan and Congo. So if he can do that, and then I see other exporters also taking it to Congo and South Sudan. Sometimes I see the exporters bringing to Kenya, and that is a seasonal variation. Some things come to Kenya. As I left Uganda last week, there was this pear. It is sold all over. It's coming from here. And then I see tomatoes coming this side sometimes. I see carrots coming from here to Uganda almost all the time. So there is that opportunity of the regional market. So we need to build a lot of our efforts towards towards these regional markets, because they offer a very good opportunity as we try to comply to the international markets. The international markets are good, and we should be able to go there, but the issue of MRLs is a bit tricky. Another thing is that as we move forward, for Uganda's case, we still have a lot of virgin land, which has never, so there's an opportunity for organic, which offers a healthy choice, and people are willing to pay more for organic. So the companies in Uganda which are doing organic actually are doing very well. Value added, there is one company in this room, representative, I think he's doing organic exports of dried organic vegetables. So there's still a big potential. The weakness also, which we have, which offers another opportunity, is for us to bring certification services closer, because these critical certification requirements are actually private standards. You know very well. For example, we have the Global Gap, Global Gap is a private standard. But when you implement it, you are able to comply to most of the regulatory requirements of the NPP or another. So it offers an opportunity. So we need to bring some of these certification services closer to our people and make them cheaper, because our people are small-scale growers, small-scale companies which are growing. Certification, organic certifications. Already I think we have representatives for organic certification bodies in Uganda, so it has been improved. And we need to create more awareness amongst our population. But all in all, horticulture still remains a sector which is of high potential and is growing very, very fast in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Samuel has mentioned quite a number of things that are barriers, and he's mentioned also local consumption, regional consumption that we need. So we call him OJ. OJ, what is stopping us from pushing more volumes into the region and with local consumption? What is stopping us? What should we do to surmount that challenge?
Thanks, Clement, and thanks, Samuel. I think for me, what is critical here is that the region must stop bad behavior. And the bad behavior here, I mean, is when I go to EU, there is a reason why EU is a bloc. And when the EU is a bloc, when EU moves cargo from, for example, when Netherlands moves cargo from Netherlands to Belgium, Belgium to Germany, Germany to France, it's considered local. And therefore, these tariffs that we keep imposing ourselves, border controls, it's not an issue out there. It's still an issue here. We still have challenges when it comes to border controls, and those border controls needs to be completely dealt with and urgently for us to be able to do business within the region. Because there's no other way this region is going to speak and compete if we already have barriers among ourselves that still exist. So we need to break down those barriers to ensure that there's free movement of goods and services that then is able to allow us to navigate. And this includes issues of licensing, business licenses. If I needed to set up business in Uganda, what kind of bureaucracy and processes do I need to go through? Am I able to set business in Uganda or Rwanda or Congo without having to go through a restriction of imagining I'm a foreigner and yet I'm an East African, East Africanist? The second thing for me is that we have opportunity in terms of logistics. We have a challenge in terms of logistics, but it also becomes an opportunity. We need to consolidate and aggregate and ensure that we increase our consolidation to make our logistics efficient, to make our logistics reliable, to be able to move cargo. It is so easy for me to move cargo from Nairobi to Heathrow than it is to move cargo from Tanzania into Kenya. It takes me longer hours to move cargo from Uganda into Nairobi than it takes me to move cargo from Nairobi to Netherlands. Basically, we need to clear up the logistical challenges that we have. The other thing that we need to quickly look at here is we must appreciate that compliance to standards is not a choice. The world talks about compliance. The world talks about standardization. The world talks about the business in the world is about compliance. So if we can improve compliance as a region and not look at Kenya, look at Uganda, look at Tanzania, let's look at a region. How do we improve compliance? How do we work together as a region? Then you mentioned about competition. Our competition is not between Kenya and Tanzania. It's not between Kenya and Ethiopia. Our competition between the region and the rest of the world. We need to look at innovation. And for me, we have a young, growing, vibrant, youthful population that is tech. Where are we? how do we involve them, and how do we build technologies? How do we ensure that our youths are incorporated? How do we get them to appreciate that it's not about being dirty like I did when I was young and when I dropped out of school to go to the farm. Today, the youths can be involved. And the value chain logistics in terms of now data. We have a challenge in terms of putting together our data. And for me, data is opportunity. You and I were in Europe the other day, and you remember the question you asked.
Yeah.
So, East Africa, what do you have? Mm-hmm. Give us the statistics. And we could not. We seated there, looked very embarrassed, because we're being told to put statistics on the table for us to be able to be put in the calendar. The market is talking about statistics. And for me, we need to look at statistics. We need to have data. We need to have data collected, collected, interpreted for purposes of trading. Then, as a region, in the horticulture industry, we now have a challenge that is an opportunity for us to transact, particularly with EU that we deal with, in the farm to fork strategy. And the EU Green Deal that is asking us to cut down the pesticide use by 50% come the year 2030, cut down fertilizer use by 50% by the year 2030, increase organic farming by 20% by the year 2030. It's a challenge, but it is also an opportunity. We must come together as a bloc and engage and negotiate so that the EU Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy is domesticated within the region, and be able to say as a bloc, this is what we can do, so that we engage as a bloc. And I could continue. Then look, I mentioned about logistics. Whereas the EU whereas Netherlands is the largest exporter of avocado in the world, you and I know that Netherlands have no single tree of avocado. So what are we doing to take advantage of consolidation centers? Make use of Mombasa, make use of Lamu, get all this cargo from the region, see how we can improve the sea transport and get efficiency along that area. Look at how do we become compliant. Last but not least, so that I'll hand over this to the next level, is can we stop this story of governments and private sector dealing as if we're in competition? The government and private sector can never be in competition. They complement. The governments must do the business of ensuring that they fast track the processes for facilitating the private sector to do business, and the businessmen must do the business, and so that we get things done. And there must be value, and we must be able to appreciate what is happening. And you know me, I always say we are committed to the bond, but it must be done with speed. The world is not interested in what you're doing. The world is interested in consistent supply of certain services that must be delivered on time. So if we do throw away the time, then we are not in business at all. So I'm looking at this team, looking at, as you said earlier, the horticulture industry. You're doing your dania, which we call coriander, which takes between 14, and I'm happy the professor is here, between 14 to 28 days, you have our coriander in the market. If government and private sector are going to continue making, facilitating that trade become a lengthy process, am I going to plant a block that I'm going to use an experiment? And am I going to plant that product that is going to go to the market right away? So we have so much opportunities we have. And listen, you and I know we have the best labor that can be used, that is flexible, that is available. And I will also call it fairly priced. We're not expensive. So it's possible for us to get masses to get into this. I could continue, but I'll let it back to you and challenge the room here that, listen, if you look at those opportunities, then of course water, then we have energy. I mean, can I say, can I get ourselves embarrassed? I keep asking. It rained where I live last night, heavily. Then I asked myself, where did that water go to? Do we have a contract with Indian Ocean to get our water, fresh water, get salty by the time it gets there? Or what are we doing with the water harvesting and technologies that we need to put around there? Thanks.
Thank you, OJ. I think one thing that OJ mentioned, logistics. And for a long time, within the region, we took logistics for granted until COVID arrived here. suddenly we realized that that is the soft underbelly for our sector. In May 2020, we were stuck with produce. You have produce that you cannot move. Yes, there was a lockdown on some of those products within the market, but we just could not move anything within the region. And we had a couple of meetings discussing with Tanzania and Rwanda and Uganda many times, and also with FAIR in Ethiopia, just seeing how we can have a regional solution to this. So we have realized the place of logistics in our business, how crucial it is. And I know that flying swans are coming in. I have a lot of interaction with flying swans, right from here all the way to Rotterdam. And we are trying to find a solution around freight. With sea freight now, it's a new innovation, probably not very new, but now we are scaling it up, just to see possibilities how sea freight can serve the region, especially with a focus on fresh produce. What are the solutions around this in terms of logistics? When we look at the situation, is there a way in which we can be able to bring all our minds together as a region to have sort of a regional approach and not just a national approach towards logistics and freight? From your perspective, Wale, when you work with Flying Swan, what should we do to make sure that we have a regional approach around this, so that in case we have a crisis of the nature of COVID-19 tomorrow, we still can be able to move our produce right from here into all the markets without any delay?
Thank you. I think it's a good question related to the logistic. As you mentioned, when COVID is arrived, one of, I can say, the biggest and single challenge, how to export our produce. And as a region, particularly as a country, we were lucky because of the Ethiopian Airlines. They can transport our fresh produce is more than 117 countries and with 58 cargo space. So what actually just IFEA, the Ethiopian Horticulture Exporter Association, and the Ministry of Transport with the Ethiopian Airlines, they come up to the table and they discussed in what will be the next solution, because every investors, the smallholders through the region and also the country, they produce, but because of this, the logistic issue, they can't export the produce. What they agreed, actually, they change the flight passengers to the cargo, and they make a discount to export the Ethiopian fresh produce from even Kenya, they tried, as I remember, and also from other countries. So after that, so what the government actually what they should do in the region as well as in the country. The Flying Swan, as you mentioned, it's a new concept that will develop logistic corridor in Kenya, Angola, in South Africa. For instance, in Ethiopia, we already have all the study by different companies from the Netherlands. For sure, we will start the construction by next year. But at the region, what I'm thinking, we have to have like our consolidation center with the East African community. You guys, I think you have the East African community, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. So I don't know how the Ethiopian can be part of that, but it needs just to have our own logistic corridor. It could be in Mombasa, it could be in Djibouti, it could be in other place. But it's a must, I think, that we have to think and we have to work on the logistics, because gold is gold now. If it's not gold, we can't sell our produce. So we have to do on the logistic. So how? Actually, I can say in different ways. One, the government, they have to have their own budget, or they have to ask any international government just to come up like the Flying Swan and to do the business. The second, the investors themselves, the exporters, they have to contribute to this sector. For instance, I can tell you in Ethiopia, when we try to export avocado from one of the region, we paid more than 15,000 euro until UK. Even it reaches on its 42 days, in the avocado it's already dumped. It's because of even the logistic crisis. I think in Kenya it's about $8,000 to $10,000, yeah, from Mombasa port. So it's very, very expensive. If you come up with the Ethiopian Airlines, the cargo prices, it's almost $1.2 up to $1.6 per kg, depending on the volume. For instance, for avocado, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 avocado. They will charge $1.6 for transportation. So it's crazy. So we have to develop the logistic corridor within the Africa, especially with the East Africa. I think that's very important. So we have to arguing and discussing with the government and any potential players. We can take the potential or the opportunity, as it's mentioned, like the energy cost for production is much cheaper in Africa. I can say in Europe now it's crazy. It's because of this the war with Ukraine and Russia. The energy cost doing the business is almost rising by 40%. So this is an advantage for us. We can produce more and we can align the logistic so that we can proceed in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you, Wale. OJ, you did mention about compliance. And compliance is not just on certification, is also when we look at some of the regulations that are coming up, and you mentioned the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork. But we are dealing with smallholders. How can we get smallholders into the ring of certification? And you know, certification is about compliance. There are certain things that they must be able to meet, and the investment is high, but also they must be organized for that to happen. So what should we do to get them into the fold?
One, it's a resource that we have, smallholder. And I keep saying smallholder is the best thing that ever happened to this part of the world. Because however crazy the weather patterns or anything happens, in case of any emergency, you will always have something from smallholder. Unlike when you have one farm and it's all flooded, it's all lost. So for me, the first thing we need to do is to be, a fact is that we must invest in bringing smallholders together in terms of the governance structure. How they are governed. We must then be able to work with smallholders to bring aggregation centers, if it's cold rooms, within specific areas in the entire region or growing areas. In terms of compliance, it's about a fact that extension services in this region, the government extension services and the private sector extension services must put aside their egos, and we must I always say, look at it as it is and say, this is the only investment we have. And in terms of the rearrangement and in terms of the policies, it must be made mandatory, in my opinion, that if you can produce up to this level, you must belong somewhere. You must belong in a place where you're comfortable. The reason why the matatu industry in Kenya started changing is because they were forced to get into cooperatives, into groups movement. Then it's easier to grow the cooperative movement and see the innovations within the smallholder. And a fact is, we must then be able to hold smallholder accountable, including punishment. Because we have people in the region who think, because I'm small, I can make mistakes and think you see somebody else will take the role. So the responsibility must be clear. That the same way you can get resources from there, we should also be able to punish you if you must be punished, because it's about raising. It's about ownership. It's about putting people to agree that if you take a road of farming, there's roles and responsibilities that are on you first. If not, leave that business, please move to another business. It can't be business where we use smallholders for purposes of getting money or for purposes of doing this, and then when they make mistakes, we seem like we're not anywhere. So in terms of, and for Kenya particularly, when devolved units came, the devolved units must be able to tell us what is this they're devolved and what is the action at the ward level. How are we working and involved, so that after we sit here, we then must be able to interpret this into actionable tangible, measurable results, and not limited to continue calibrating them, informing them what's happening. And for the EU strategy and the EU Green Deal strategy and the Farm to Fork strategy, we must sit down on the table with them and explain that we're in the tropics. So we can't run away from dudus, the pests. We are not going to run away as long as we're in this part of the world. We must find a way of how do they understand us? How do we understand them? And what he mentioned about pesticide, hey, pesticide, just like pharmaceutical products you take, have their space in farming, right? It is the usability of those molecules and the products that we must focus on. Just like some of us cannot avoid to use some pharmaceutical products, we are not going to avoid to use pesticide when it comes to farming. But how do we follow instructions? Who is guiding us? And I want to ask that we go through partnerships. We must build real partnerships. We must have governments, we must have private sector, we must have the development partners. I want to remove the word donor, but I want to bring a word of the partnerships that are practical. Then back to what I said earlier, can we get statistics? Can we go into innovation? Can we have our soils tested? Can we have, I've seen researchers here. What is the role of researchers? Because the land population, the land we have, the pressure on the land is so much. And in this region, it's about smallholder. What are the researchers doing? What are the academia doing? Because we must get it. If not, we must just kick off some people and say, land use, the way it's structured currently, must be restructured for us to be able to remain sustainable. And we must be bold. It requires boldness. Last but not least, the political class must get to know that they are part and parcel of this region. They are not kings, they are our servants. And therefore the policies they make, as they pass policies in their legislation framework, they must get to know that they will be hanged harshly by my God if they lead this thing happen. We must have the politicians held accountable, not to walk into workshops and make decisions that are not informed. Then for the scientists in this room, you must speak. Scientists must speak and must stop writing books and putting them in the shelves. They must help us to interpret what they have written. I submit.
Thank you, OJ. Let me just hold that thread, because we have knowledge and we have practice. Now, in Kenya, I will give you an example. Many years ago, when some of us were growing, there was something called extension service, or extension knowledge to farmers. And today, it's almost gone. I mean, today in Kenya, you cannot talk about extension. I don't know about the region, Samuel. We have access to inputs, for example, as one, but we have the knowledge on the application of those inputs onto the farm, which in my word, I call it the extension service, which is actually missing. How can we go back to creating that knowledge and understanding and practically that happening, especially with the focus on smallholders that OJ was talking about? Because that has a lot of bearing on productivity at the end of the day. What do we need to do?
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to say that in Uganda, we are working very closely with the government, with our regulators. OJ, it appears we've been having some fights. I don't know. You're okay?
I disagree.
You just disagree.
It is the process
exactly
of approval that we say must be fast-tracked.
Exactly.
That we do not have war.
Okay. Because that is very, very important. If we are to move forward, we need to work in harmony. Yeah. They have their role to play. We have our role to play. Yeah. When it comes to smallholder farmers, it's true. They are very instrumental in this business. First and foremost, it is a family thing, the labor is cheap and the management is easier. But when it comes to passing on knowledge with the decay of the extension services. Extension services have decayed or are no longer efficient because of, in Uganda, because of 2 or 3 reasons. The first one, the population has grown. The second one, the resource envelope from government to support these services has reduced. The third is the private sector is weak. It is not able to manage its own extension services, though they try. But the opportunity which we have now is the technology. I think we're slowly moving towards technology. In Uganda, there is an innovation whereby I think one company is using technology to distribute these inputs, to also provide advice, guidance on how to use. And I think the technology, and this gives the opportunity to young people. So we need to do some more research to see how can this one be improved. Can each and every farmer have a smartphone? If they don't have a smartphone, can they use SMS? So somebody takes a picture. I know for these scientists like Dr. Nanchinga, I know when you take a photograph of your problem and you send it to her, she will tell you what it is and what you need to do. So you reduce on the cost of extension services if you can embrace the technology. And it's good in this room you have said that the youth are very good at technology. They don't want to touch the dirt. I'm trying out something with a project in Uganda, which is in horticulture, trying to engage the youth 18 to 35 years in the growing of Irish potatoes and chili, green chili. Incidentally, in Chisoro district, Chisoro is very far. They are bordering Kenya and Rwanda and the Congo. And I've seen that the quickest way to have these youth properly aligned and skilled and guided on the use of these pesticides, the planting, the source of the clean inputs, etc., is through technology. So all of us, I think, need to do some research and innovate around this area of using technology so that we can reduce on that burden of having so many supported, local government supported extension services which are lacking, and this should be private sector led. Whoever is selling online, distributing and providing technical guidance is getting some little bonus along the chain. And that coupled with what government is doing. The other day, when was it? I came here on Tuesday, yes. On Tuesday, I was in a remote area, not very far away from Kampala, talking to farmers. I was shocked to find that one of the farmers there had actually been trained by the Ministry of Agriculture, the NPPO. And he came out to train others. So I don't want to say that they're doing nothing. They're doing something, but that something can be improved. Yeah. So with the little money they have, resource envelope, we can subsidize and provide a better service by use of technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. I know the time is spent, but let me ask one more question, Wale. Within the region, I know, and I'm taking the example of Kenya, on fruits, almost 40% of our fruits goes to West because of 2 reasons. Number one, it's based on the post-harvest handling, and coupled with that, of course, is storage. 40% of our fruit goes to West. So you can imagine the investment against what is sold at the end of the day. What can we do as a region to cut down this waste? Especially, I'm focusing especially on fruits, because we are growing bigger on some of the fruits like avocado and the rest of the fruits that are emerging. We're going to become bigger as a region on this. What should we put in place to ensure that the outcome at the end of the day in terms of what we sell is as close to what we produced as much as possible?
I think This is like, I can say, sleeping giant segment is the processing. So we all are focusing on the fresh produce that can be actually exported to the Europe, but I can't say much attention is given to the small or the micro enterprise who can do the processing. So in my opinion, the local consumption is always increasing. As you mentioned, the avocado, especially this is one of the emerging crop in the region. Kenya is leading and following South Africa. Hopefully, as a country, Ethiopia, we will follow all the parameters. Even if you can see our plan, we're focusing on export market is because of this is a hard currency and other issues. But as I mentioned, we have to focus as a region and as a country on the micro, small, and medium processing. For instance, we have in Ethiopia like 3 avocado oil processing companies. They do even the first grade they export, the second grade they sell to the local market, and they do the oil from the third, or I can say the rejected part. So why they are not actually processing the first grade or the second grade? It's because of the price. The price is better instead of processing the oil just to sell the fresh. So what we are thinking, so let's introduce other technology, like just by attracting other investors who are doing the cosmetics industry, or like now the Chinese, they are opening for avocado repair. I think Kenya, you guys are started, but still the phytosanitary issue is very challenging to export to China, even if they are importing via Hong Kong, but it's a little bit tricky. So they receive products from Africa via Hong Kong. So we should focus also on doing this, the frozen avocado, not only avocado, like the mango and as also. I think on this aspect, the region has to come up with a plan focusing on the agro-processing, like the oil.
Thank you. I think as we conclude, I just want to give the panelists an opportunity just to underscore we are basically looking at a region that needs to take advantage of what we have for growth into new and existing and new and emerging markets, and really position ourselves to remain very competitive. In your opinion, Samuel, as we summarize, what are these things that we need to do if we have to solidify this, where we remain on production in terms of volumes and quality, and also looking at compliance and what we need to do in existing and new markets, and also probably promoting the domestic consumption of horticultural products? What are these things that we need to do, in your opinion, that are so critical that if we did now, it will make a huge difference going forward?
The first and most important is to break the bureaucracy. And I think it has already been mentioned by OJ. Let us ease the flow of the goods across our own borders as governments. Very critical. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't make business sense to anybody to invest in such a venture if there's bureaucracy. He gave some examples that a product coming from Uganda to Kenya takes longer time than moving from Uganda from Kenya to Netherlands. So that is very, very bad. Yet I see opportunity for Ugandan farmers to produce for Kenyan farmers. On my desk, I've already got a request to produce. They call it red what? Butter. Yeah, that one. Because the climate in our place is very good. So a certain company here was produced there and bring it here. And it is going to be done by these small outgrowers. So it's a great opportunity. So such an opportunity will die if the bureaucracy is there. And not only that, even Chile. I think here in Kenya you have a company which belongs to in Nairobi. It belongs to Aga Khan. They tried it out. They wanted something else from Uganda. So, in summary, if we can reduce on the bureaucracy so that we ease the flow, so that we take advantage of our own products, our own where we have competitive advantage. Then, if you have competitive advantage over something, that comes in easily. Then also registration of businesses, as you said, it should also be eased, and we should look at common areas where we have competitive advantage, so we can build up our markets, and together we ease. We try to lobby for cheaper freight, because freight is a problem. Come up with a solution like his organization is doing. That will help us to grow together. And as we know that in the Africa, I think East Africa still has a big advantage of producing more, including Ethiopia, for the rest of Africa. So we need to work together. The issue is now here, the question will be, how can we bring in our Ethiopian brothers? Because Congo has joined. I don't know, maybe Ethiopia is about to join, because I saw Egypt was part of COMESA, and in the Codex, in the International Food Standards, Egypt had gone to Near East. It had gone out of Africa to Near East when it came to Codex standards. I remember that. So this bringing our own economic blocks will be very instrumental in promoting our competitiveness, working together, just the way the EU has done. I think somebody on the panel has mentioned, was it you, moderator? You mentioned that the EU has come together as a bloc, and this helps them to control and helps them to manage, and even so we should do the same, strengthen our own economic bloc. So, and like he has mentioned, we are here with the pests. They are our brothers. We should just work together to see how we manage them, and also take advantage of other areas where we can benefit as a region like the organic. Thank you.
Thank you. OJ, your closing remarks.
Thanks. Colleagues, we are stronger together. That's for me the message. We are stronger together. And we must then bring to life the African Free Continental Trade Area and find out what this means. You can imagine the opportunity, the potential, if we all came together and collapsed our interest together. So the message is simple. We are stronger together. We must stop living in the past. We must be real. Science must be given its space and technologies, and take advantage of a youthful population to move forward. And critically is that logistics is not just a story. It's a reality. You and I know what happened and the wars we went for us to be able to do certain things. And friends, we must bring change in our time and hand over the baton when we have fixed things. And running away from responsibility will never sort us out.
Thank you, Jay. Wale, your closing remarks.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. There is opportunity in Africa. We have land, we have water, we have competitive in the skilled labor, but we're somewhere in sleeping. So let's wake up, so let's work, so let's come together, and let's do what can we feed to the region and to our country. There is opportunities, especially there is break, the bureaucratic that you mentioned, it's everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a good opportunity just to interact with you. I'm sure that, we have underscored some of the challenges, but also looked at a few solutions that we can bring in. For me, I always believe it's not about doing 100 things. It's just about doing 2 things and do them right, with the right commitment and with the right approach. I think the potential for horticulture within the region is immense. It needs all of us to see the same tree, pull the same direction, and I think we can be able to be a giant when it comes to horticulture, international trade, and also trading within ourselves in the region. I think we can't emphasize that there is a lot of potential between ourselves to buy one from the other, and for us to make this one of the best sectors in terms of poverty alleviation and supporting livelihoods. The potential is there. Thank you so much.
Before you hand over, sorry, it's not good to have. I just want to encourage. I went for breakfast, and a few colleagues who are here. I didn't see them eating fruit. So can it start with us?
Yes, OJ always starts with fruit. Thank you so much, OJ. Really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a hand of appreciation. I'm sure there may be some burning questions and other comments, but please, if we can just hold that back, we need to quickly move on to the next session. Dr. Mary, you have something burning?
Yes. Raise a speaker?
You're audible now.
Okay. I just want to say that what OJ said, we are stronger together. Emphasis on linkages and partnership, and that is all about. OJ again says science and innovation must be at the center. And I just want to emphasize that within this space, we have the academia. And let the academia be the agents of change. And I'm thinking of innovation, moving ideas into services. And therefore, academia and all researchers in this room, let's work together with small farmers and the industry to really innovate and make this continent a better place.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. And the discussion continues, the conversation is going to go on, and thank you for highlighting that point.